Hi, I'm Heather Weidner, and I live in Midlothian, Virginia. I'm the author of the Delaney Fitzgerald PI series, and those are set in Central Virginia, and the Jules Keene Glamping Mysteries, which are set in Fern Valley, which is right outside of Charlottesville in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. And coming in January of 2022, the Mermaid Bay Christmas Shop Mysteries will debut, and those are set outside of Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm really excited to be here today for the adult storytelling, and today I'm going to read a few chapters from Vintage Trailers and Blackmailers. Monday morning. Jules Keene had been so focused on making the gift bags look fabulous that she didn't hear her aunt approaching until Roxanne dropped her Gucci purse on the counter with a clatter. What in tarnation is going on in here? It looks like the gift wrapping counter in a 1950s department store. Roxanne stared at the sea of red and purple tissue paper covering every available surface of the office of their family's vintage trailer campground. Clad in a pink fuzzy sweater, tight designer jeans, pearls, and a perfectly coiffed blonde bob, Roxanne looked more in vogue than anyone else, as usual. Jules pulled her long red curls into a ponytail. It's gift bag central. We're assembling them for this weekend's classic car and camper cruise-in. Starting Thursday, hundreds of classic camping enthusiasts were expected to descend on their sleepy little one-stoplight town of Fern Valley, nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains west of Charlottesville, Virginia. 20 years ago, the downtown had been boarded up, but now the area boasted a variety of eateries, a bookstore, several art galleries, wineries, and a 50-acre Fern Valley luxury camping resort. Jules and Roxanne catered to visitors looking for solitude, luxury, and outdoor adventures in refurbished trailers that were updated on the inside, but vintage on the outside. Jules used her degree in interior design to add special details for her guests. She themed and stocked each camper for swanky vacations for the glamping craze, which turned out to be profitable for the family business. "Where's Bijou?" Roxanne asked. "Under all that paper?" "Dell, I left her at home this morning. She'd had a field day with all the wrapping paper in the bags." Bijou was Jules' 6-year-old Jack Russell Terrier. The bell on the front door tinkled, and Roxanne and Jules stepped out in the public space that included the general store and guest registration. "Hello, may I help you?" Roxanne asked the couple who approached the counter. Their 3 boys bounced around the store like small tornadoes, jostling camping supplies, books, and flyers of nearby attractions. "Boys!" the man's deep baritone voice echoed in the store. The 3 children closed rank behind their mother and stood soundlessly. "We're Jill and John Riley, and these are Michael, Daniel, and Rex." "T-Rex," said the middle child with the blonde buzz cut. Jules smiled. It was always more fun when there were kids at the resort. "Welcome, I'm Jules Keene, and this is my aunt, Roxanne Mallory. You're in for a fun week." She clicked a few keys on the computer. "We had the 1959 Airstream reserved for 2 weeks. Here's your key. It's number A5, and this is your welcome package. Breakfast is served from 6 to 10 in the lodge. If you'd like to book a tour or need ideas for things to do, please let me know." Jules processed the man's credit card. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you where your Airstream is." Jules held the door for the family and then trotted down the front steps in the bright sunshine. The long covered porch, lined with rocking chairs and a swing at each end, served as the perfect spot for those seeking relaxation in the shade. They walked down a sidewalk past the parking lot, bordered by a split rail fence. The flower beds overflowed with Virginia bluebells, and the dogwoods and mountain laurel looked like they were ready to burst into bloom at any moment. "Here we are," Jules said. "All of our trailers have a wine chiller, refrigerator, and microwave. Most everyone eats in town for lunch and dinner, but if you need takeout or delivery ideas, we can help. There's no cooking except for the microwave, and the trailers have been refurbished and upsized to accommodate today's travelers." "This will be fine for us," Jill Riley said. "We also have camping and sporting gear available for you to check out in the office. Please enjoy our wooded trails, croquet course, and rocking chairs on the front porch. And we have recipes and supplies if you want to try out the campfire and our world-famous s'mores. Let me know if you need anything." The sun glinted off the iconic silver camper. Jules used her hand to shade her eyes. "We will," Jill said. "This is lovely. We're going to have a campfire and go fishing," the tallest boy, who looked about 10. The smallest child chimed in with, "and ride horses, and I hope we see a bear, and maybe Bigfoot." Jules smiled. "If you do, let me know." The dad unlocked the door, and the boys clambered up the 2 steps and bounced around inside. On her way back to the office, she passed Ira Perkins sitting under the awning of the patio of the 1947 Robin Hood, a small bean-shaped camper perfect for a single guest. Jules had themed that trailer in honor of the famous outlaw hero from Sherwood Forest. Mr. Perkins, who Jules guessed was in his early 60s, had arrived 2 months ago and paid in advance for an 8-month stay to finish writing his book. "Hello, Mr. Perkins. Beautiful day, isn't it?" "So far, but I saw you over there with a bunch of kids a few minutes ago. I hope they don't ruin it. I came for solitude, and I will not tolerate shenanigans." "There shouldn't be any issues, but let me or my team know if you have any concerns." "Oh, I will. This is my writing retreat. I do not like interruptions. I do not wish to be bothered. I was here first." Jules smiled and waved as she meandered through the trailers and back to the office. He must be a temperamental writer. He always has some mild jab or complaint to voice. Jules dismissed thoughts of her grumpy guest as she climbed the wooden steps to the porch to survey the vintage campers. A lot had changed around here since she was a little girl. She and her father had slowly removed all the traditional campsites and replaced them with vintage trailers before he died 3 years ago. The property still had hookups in a field she called the Meadow on the other side of the barn for events like this weekend's cruise-in, but the vintage trailers were now the campground's selling point. People wanted a nice retreat for their weekends and vacations. Her vintage trailers had been modernized for comfort and posh amenities. She missed her parents on days like this. Since her dad's death, Roxanne and her son were Jules's only living relatives, and Bijou, her dog, was the only good thing to come out of her divorce from the idiot. Jules shook off the nostalgic feeling and leaned forward to open the office's screen door. Roxanne sauntered out of the office with a wine bottle and 2 glasses. "Hey, kiddo, everything's closed up in there. There aren't any other guests scheduled for today. I'm heading out. I put the phone on night answering service, and Emily will be in tomorrow morning to cover the front desk. See you later." She sashayed down the path toward Mr. Perkins' trailer. Jules' eyes widened. Her feisty aunt and the ornery Mr. Perkins. Jules would have to get the scoop on that. Tuesday. Late in the morning, Jules slid in the seat at the table at the lodge that also served as a social hall for the resort's large events. The tall ceiling with its exposed oak beams reminded Jules of a European ski resort. An oversized stone fireplace stood sentry at one end of the hall, while a bank of windows on the opposite wall showcased the view of the woods and the bluish mountains in the distance. The last guest had cleared out and headed off for their day's adventures. The lone person in the big room was her employee, Jake Evans. "Coffee?" Jake placed one of the 2 steaming mugs in front of her. The muscular 30-something had worked on and off for Jules's family since they were teens, and he now handled maintenance and security for the campground. "Thanks. All quiet last night?" Jules added creamer and stared out the wall of windows at the mountain. "Yep. I did my last rounds about 11:30. Everyone was tucked in and behaving." "Good. All the trailers are reserved through the weekend, and we have a cruise in on Friday. All the spots at the Meadow are taken as well." "Full house. Your special events keep them coming in. Did you book extra security for the weekend?" "I did. If we stay full for the rest of the summer and fall, I'll add extra guys for weekend security, and that should give you a break." "Thanks," he smiled, and Jules noticed the glimmer in his green eyes. "I like the overtime, but it gives me time to scout some new projects." Jake had helped the team that did the restoration for the campground, and now he was itching to try a project on his own. "You worked too hard," but it was nice to have him around. He had moved into one of the small cabins on the back of the property last year when she added security to his duties. On-premise security was a good trade-off for free rent in case there was ever a situation. "I've got to go check the office. Aunt Roxanne should be in by now." He grinned and stifled whatever he was going to say. "What?" "Nothing. Your aunt is a free spirit," he smirked. "What brought that on?" Jules looked at her well-worn fingernails. Nothing really," Jake paused. "She was visiting with guests last evening." Jules tried to maintain a poker face. She wasn't the only one who saw Roxanne stop at Mr. Perkins' trailer. She rose from her seat, cleaned off her side of the table, and then waved goodbye to Jake. The sun warmed her face on her stroll across the property to the office. It would be a great day for a walk in the woods, but her list of unfinished tasks drew her like a magnet toward her desk. She needed to complete this month's newsletter and do some artwork for next week's social media posts. Jules, still thinking about her new marketing ideas, backtracked to her cabin to get Bijou. The white and brown Jack Russell Terrier greeted her with a yip. Jules leaned over to pick her up and got a face full of puppy kisses instead. "Hey, sweetie, ready to go to work? I'm sorry you had to stay yesterday. Everybody missed you." Bijou answered by circling Jules's feet and running out the door. She enjoyed the warm June morning as much as Jules did. On the walk to the office, the dog had to smell everything and bark at a bird. It looked like most of the guests had left for the day. Jules had made a mental note to pull out 2 hammocks in case anyone wanted to relax under the trees. She also decided to bring out the badminton net for pickup games. Bijou bolted after a butterfly. Giving up the fluttering insect, she trotted up the front porch steps and whined for the door to be opened. "Hey, good morning," Jules yelled as her eyes adjusted to the cool darkness of the store. The Jack Russell Terrier zoomed around the displays and ran off in search of Roxanne, who always had a treat or two in her desk drawer. "Hi, Jules," Emily Owens, a diminutive teen who worked part-time at the campground. She arranged camping and first aid supplies on a rack closest to the registration counter. "How are things going?" "Great. I went to the French Film Festival at the Bijou Theater with friends last night." Jules had such fond memories of the former Lowe's Movie Palace in town, with its balcony, huge red velvet curtains, and ornate Art Deco furnishings. The Bijou was her favorite place to watch movies. The name meant Jewel, and it was perfect for the small dog that ruled Jules's heart and house. "That sounds like fun. Thanks for restocking. When you're done, would you check on our Instagram and Facebook accounts?" "Sure. I love getting paid to do social media." The teen headed to the counter, and her ponytail bounced in time with her gait. Jules disappeared into the workroom where her aunt flipped through a pile of manila folders. "Hey, how goes it?" Roxanne shared her office chair with Bijou, who had already settled in for a mid-morning nap. "Everything's humming along. It's all under control." "Love it." Jules settled in at her desk. "Oh, you got a call about some group outing." A loud bang and shouting echoed from the front of the store. Bijou barked, and Jules and Roxanne rushed in to see what the commotion was about. Roxanne pulled the bottom part of the Dutch door closed behind her to keep Bijou out of the fray. Mr. Perkins slammed his fist on the counter and spilled one of the brochure displays. His beet red face matched the color of his ball cap. "Listen to me. I came here for quiet, and I will not be subjected to those hooligans. You will do something about it right now, or you will refund all of my money. Those kids are out of control. They keep knocking on my door and running away. Then they peek in my windows. What are you going to do about this, young lady? You don't even look old enough to work here. I want to talk to your boss." He poked his finger close to Emily's nose. "I want quiet and my privacy." Before she could reply, Roxanne strode forward. "I'll take care of this. Mr. Perkins, you do not need to shout. We will be happy to assist you." This young lady rolled her eyes at me. "I don't appreciate the sass. I've paid good money to stay here, and I demand to be heard." He pounded on the counter again with his fist, shaking more of the display items. "Ought to teach those kids a lesson. They run around unsupervised. Maybe if one or two of them disappeared for a while, it would teach their parents something about making their kids behave, and it wouldn't be so loud around here." Shock flashed across Jules' face as the threats to other guests, especially those directed at little kids. She opened her mouth to retort, but Roxanne's voice dominated the room. "Listen here, Ira, you need to calm down. You can't yell at our staff and threaten to kidnap little children. It's time for you to go back to your writing and pipe down." "You listen to me, woman. Don't tell me what to do. I know my rights." Mr. Perkins spat out the words at Roxanne as he shook his fist and grimaced. Before Jules could intervene, Roxanne leaned across the counter toward Mr. Perkins and pointed a finger at his nose. "I heard what you said, and I hope for your sake you were just popping off. We all heard you, and we'll take care of the noise issue. You make sure to steer clear of that family and those kids." "Don't patronize me, woman. I had enough of you last night. You overstayed your welcome with all your yammering. And if this kid thing isn't resolved to my satisfaction, I'm going to reconsider my extended stay." Roxanne's cheeks flushed, and the anger flashed across her face. Mr. Perkins turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the screen door. Roxanne bounded down the store and yanked the door open. "Well, man, last night was not a thrill for me either. You're not the conversationalist you claim to be. And don't come barging in here hollering at my staff and threatening little kids, or I will make you disappear and not think twice about it." Jules peeked over her aunt's shoulder to see several guests, including a pair of bird watchers and Lester, the groundskeeper, watching the drama. She hoped everyone would move on and forget the outburst. Upset guests who left bad reviews were one thing she didn't need right now. Roxanne huffed back in the office and slammed the door. Wednesday. Jules opened the office door, and Bijou made her entrance like a firecracker. Jules grinned. Nothing was ever quiet with a Jack Russell. She dropped her black messenger bag on the desk in the back and flipped through the mail. "Hey there, anybody home?" Roxanne swooped in with a to-go cup and a bagel. Bijou greeted Roxanne with her favorite tennis ball. Roxanne tossed the ball for the little dog as she held onto her breakfast with the other hand. "Morning," Jules said. "I talked with the parents of the 3 boys, and I moved them into the 1970 Airstream Sovereign on the other side of the campground. The boys should like the fishing theme, and I haven't heard anything else out of Mr. Perkins. You? No, I haven't seen hide nor hair of the old buzzard since he embarrassed himself yesterday, and I have nothing further to say to him. He can enjoy his own company since he thinks so highly of himself. Jules straightened the items on the counter. Okay, if he comes back, call me. I'll deal with him. I know you're protective of Emily, but... I know. My mouth took over when my brain didn't kick in. He got on my last nerve. I guess I probably shouldn't have raised my voice at him, but he was asking for it. Mick that threatened him, but she refrained from correcting her aunt. I'm going to go check on the grounds. Call me if you need me. Bijou, keep Aunt Roxanne company while I'm gone. The dog bounced around the office like a pinball. Jules strolled out and jumped in the golf cart parked under the carport behind the store. The warm weather was perfect for a tour of the grounds and the 360-degree view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The wildflowers had popped and the color mixed with all the greenery. Jules loved this time of the year. She drove the cart through the vintage campers where most were already filled with guests. Some empty stood ready for weekend occupancy. She stopped for a minute before rounding the corner to survey the grounds. No guests in sight. She didn't see Mel or Crystal Carson either. They must still be in the kitchen. The mother-daughter team cooked breakfast in the lodge and then cleaned the trailers. Nothing but peace and quiet and the occasional cicadas. As soon as she made her turn to check out the maintenance area at the big red barn, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the edge of the woods. Jules slammed on the brakes and made a quick turn. She mashed the accelerator and the car lurched in the direction of the noise. Jules stopped at the edge of the tree line as one of her guests, Miss Charlene Fillmore, came running out of the woods with her hair and sun visor askew. The septuagenarian bent over with her hands on her knees. She took a moment to catch her breath. Jules, call the police. I tripped over a body in the woods. And that is Vintage Trailers and Blackmailers. And I'm Heather Weidner. Thank you.